Welcome back to Learn Your Stripes. I'm Ryan Guillory.
And I'm Michael Moran. And it's been a few weeks, but we're back, and we're going to start off with the result of the play from our previous episode. So 4th and 10 at the A40, A99's punt is caught by B23 at the B20. B23 returns the punt, and at the A6 waves his finger in the air and points to the scoreboard. At the snap, A had 5 players in the backfield. Now, this one's a little bit tricky, but again, we always ask, what's your result in high school and college, and what is the foul if you have any, and who's going to be next to put the ball in play? So at both levels, we'll have a foul on the kicking team at the snap and a foul on the receiving team during the return. The receiving team will almost certainly decline the illegal formation to keep the ball. And at the high school level, the score will count, and the unsportsmanlike conduct for pointing the finger at the scoreboard will be enforced on the try or the succeeding free kick. And of course, the kicking team has the choice for that. At the college level, the score does not count, and the UNS is enforced from the A6, where the unsportsmanlike conduct action began. So the return team, now A, will have from 1st and 10 from B's 21, so that's 15 yards back from the 6, a 25-second play clock, and of course, the game clock starts on the snap. That's a fun one, Ryan.
Yeah, it's really the whole concept that we've talked about before of clean hands, right? The defense, they got it with clean hands here, so they'll obviously decline the penalty on A for the illegal formation. They'll want the ball. Obviously, in high school, it's a score for them. In college, it's going to set them up. There'll be about 21 yards to go. I guess 21 yards is the right amount when you're starting on the B21, isn't it?
Yep.
But they'll have 1st and 10 there, and obviously they'll want the ball instead of having A back up and re-kick, and potentially having a lot of worse things than happen than starting on your opponent's 21-yard line.
Well, so Ryan, for those of us that are in Indiana football, the regular season has come to a close, and we're getting ready to start the postseason tournament. I know if you listen to other states, you may be nearing the postseason as well. How have you held up physically?
Overall, pretty well. Of course, a few aches and pains that start creeping in this time of year, but I've been pretty lucky. I've heard and I know of some people missing games with injuries. What would you do if you were in that situation, Michael?
To me, it's pretty simple. I'd contact Andrew McClure at Get Right Physical Therapy. We've talked about it a couple of times on the show. He's a physical therapist with experience in upper and lower body injuries, and he's also a football official, so he understands the movements that we do, the actions we take, the things that our bodies are doing, and the stress we put on them, so we can continue to perform at that high level on the field.
That's a great point, Michael. Do you need to have seen a physician or have a referral?
That's the best part. Andrew has a doctorate in physical therapy, and in Indiana, you can see a physical therapist without any referral. So you can skip all the waiting rooms, the doctor's offices, and go right to the guy who's going to help you feel better and get you back on the field. His office is in Carmel, but he can also do virtual visits with people in the state who aren't local to central Indiana.
How would we make an appointment?
It's easy enough. Contact him at the website, getrightphysicaltherapy.com, or you can send him an email, Andrew at getrightphysicaltherapy.com. And I think he also has an Instagram page too, GetRightPT. So finish season strong without any pain. And when you contact him, tell him you heard about him on Learn Your Stripes.
As Michael had mentioned, and as those of you who listen to our podcast obviously know, it's been a few weeks since we've been here. We've sort of gone the exact opposite route of what we did last season, where we killed ourselves to get one out every single week of the season and then decided to take some time off afterwards. This year, between officiating, work, family, all of those good things combining, we've both been as busy as one could possibly be during the football season. So we've been a little slow getting recordings out, but we'll get back to a more regular pace and be a little bit more proactive this off season than we were last. But before we get to the off season, we're going to talk about the current season, which, as Michael said, here in Indiana, we're entering the postseason at this point. In college, we've still got quite a few weeks to go, thankfully. So I'd say maybe we're slightly more than midway through the season, roughly midway through our college season, I would think. So we've still got some work there to do. But obviously, playoffs are upon us now in Indiana for high school. So a lot of good things, a lot of exciting things that have happened there. Way back when, prior to week 1, we talked about doing an episode where we gave some tips for the upcoming season. We didn't do that. However, now that we're in the first week of the postseason, we thought it might be a good idea to just talk about the season that we've had, some highlights really things we've learned, things we've improved upon, things we still want to improve upon, and just some things that have stuck out from this season that hopefully can help some people now as we're entering the postseason. So I've just spoken for several minutes, so I'm going to naturally do the great host thing and put all the responsibility for starting this discussion off on Michael.
I know it's something I try to work on every year. We talk about slowing down. And I know anybody, if you're in your first year or second year, kind of still getting into it, you're going to hear it a lot: slow down, slow down, slow down. And I think even our veteran guys can attest to always slowing down. I think the number one thing is when you have a foul, you get so excited, you've thrown your flag, whether it's a dead ball foul or it's a live ball foul, like a holding or something, you just get excited and you're ready to do something. And the first thing I would say is just stop. The clock's already stopped. Nothing can happen. We've got all kinds of things to sort out, especially if it's a live ball foul, right? We've got to figure out what happened on the play. Did we have an incomplete pass? Did we have a score? Did we change possession? So the first thing you want to do is that I've thought about this season with some of the things that I've encountered is just stop and just breathe and just continue to be slow. Let your brain think. I know at the college level specifically, I'm a deep wing. So if we have defensive pass interference, we could go any number of places, right? We could go to the spot of the foul. We could go 15 yards. Of course, if we're, inside the 17, you can get all the way up to the 2. It's just different things you have to think about. And luckily, I've got a great umpire, Ross Hayden. We had him on the show a couple episodes ago. He's always good at slowing me down and saying, "Hey, come talk to me with what's going on." So first thing is always to slow down and know where you're going with that. And then again, breathe. Take a breath, because you're going to have to go to your referee and report what you're about to say. And so you better make sure you've got all of your pieces of information in order. The last thing you want to do is go up to a referee and say, "I have a hold on blue. I didn't get a number, and I think it went out of bounds." Your referee is just gonna lose his mind, right? I mean, I know you and I've had a couple of years experience doing this, but I don't know if you've had a similar situation where you've got somebody maybe in some of the games you've done. I know you might have had a couple games this year. Anything you can relate to like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, no matter if you're new or you've been doing this for a while, slowing down is sort of a universal thing that we all need to do. We've gotten observed at the high school level a few times this year. I've had other people look at some of my college games, and that is the primary piece of feedback that I get, is to slow down. For me, it's not necessarily about throwing a flag too fast or rushing through enforcements. Being on line of scrimmage, obviously, I'm getting spots after every play. I guess unless it's a deep play and my deep wing's telling me what the spot is. But generally, on the vast majority of the plays we have, I'm going to be spotting the ball. And I have a tendency to have try to make a beeline there, no matter what's going on around me. When, if I see its player stepped out or is down at the 37, that's not going to change if I, wait 2 seconds for something to clear in front of me, or, wait for something to clear up on the sideline in my path. The spot's 37, regardless of when I get there. We talk about it a lot when you start going up the ladder, right? And you're looking at, Power 5, your Big Ten, SEC officials, NFL officials. The one thing that always sticks out, because I watch my position, I watch line of scrimmage. I tend to notice the other officials when they're involved in something, or when the announcers are saying something stupid about them. But if I'm just watching a game, I'm watching my position, and it's remarkable just how patient the line of scrimmage officials get as you move up the ranks. Mm-hmm. Just watching the time, and I don't know if deliberateness is a word. Is that a word, Michael?
It is today.
All right. Maybe the better way to say is that they're deliberate in their movements. There's no extra movement. There's no hectic movement. It's slow. It's steady. It's measured. They get to the spot. They let the play out, make sure nothing stupid's happening afterwards, and they get there. So that's slowing down there. I have also found, and I had a discussion with this with the white hat on my college crew. They come over the radio sometimes to me to ask about penalties, as long as it's a flag that I don't have, and then I can give input. But I don't know what it is. Whenever it's my foul, so much of the knowledge that I have just tends to just go out my ears or something. It's like the old cartoon things of the guy with the steam coming out of his ears and his head about to explode. And that's really that thing that you talked about. Slow down. If I threw the flag, I threw it for a reason. I had a foul. I'm going to know if it's offense, defense, kicking team, receiving team. I'm going to know that. As long as I take my time, I'm going to be able to know what the enforcement is. So for me, I have found, we try to do a lot on the radios, and that certainly helps a lot of things. We don't have to take the time to meet and discuss. I've got a hold on 78, right? But for me, if it's something a little bit more complex, if I jog into my referee, if I sprint there, this is me. I'm my own experience, right? If I sprint there, I'm just going to be really frantic in my head, and I'm going to stumble through some of the things. If I jog there and I have a little more time, I'm more patient. I'm going to deliver all the information that he needs in a calmer manner, and he's going to be able to announce it cleanly, and we're going to be able to move through things more quickly because I slowed down and I didn't get there and started stumbling and try to remember who was it on, what's the enforcement, which way are we going, all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I whiteheaded a few JV level games this year in college, and we had a lot of new guys. That's the whole purpose of JV games, right? It's new guys or guys working new positions, and that's what I told them beforehand. Like, come to me, give me the information that you have. Try to give it to me in a way that I would announce it, but if you can't do that, let's talk through it. We're going to get there. If you throw a flag and you come to me with information, as long as I don't have information to take you off of it for some reason, if you come to me, we're going to talk through it and we're going to get it right. There's no rush. We're not going to snap the ball until we're done. We're not going to take an extra amount of time for no reason, but we're going to work through it. We're going to get there. And so, it's just take your time in everything you're doing, whether it's spotting the ball, calling a foul, reporting a foul, or just, scanning through the results of the play and trying to think about what just happened. One last point here, we had a game a couple weeks ago where one of our deep wings who's a really good official, through a DPI, probably shouldn't have been thrown on that one, but it's just, we talked through the process because there was a great end zone view and he was reaching for his flag before the play was over. And it's one of those that I think had he stopped, thought about what he just saw and waited before reaching for the flag instead of committing to throwing the flag, it probably doesn't get thrown. And it really wasn't DPI and it would have been a bit cleaner, but, that was just one that, again, rushed through. And then the next game, he had a very similar play. He was patient. He didn't throw, right? So that is learning from game to game, slowing down and being accurate because you took the time to be accurate.
That's a great point. And I'm going to segue into something else I'm thinking about here, talking about the flags. And I think if you I know if you slow down and give yourself just that extra second, you'll know in your head if you love that flag. And
right.
If you see a foul and you see the whole thing and you love it and hey, I've got holding you'll know every moment that happened within that. I had a hold, I had a grab and restrict, and he did this right here and it was number 87 and it was on the offense and we're going from this spot and it's going to be second down. You know all of those elements if you take that time to slow down and you can go right to your referee and report that. I had two fouls this year that come to my mind and one was the runner was coming out of the backfield, came off the right side and in comes the defender and I see targeting clear as day. Okay, got this. And comes in, boom. Okay. Flag comes out. I go right to my referee. I'm so proud of myself. Hey, I've got targeting crown on the helmet. And my referee goes, no, you don't. I went, oh, I guess I don't. He goes, he had him with his shoulder and hit his shoulder. And I said, oh, okay. And I trust this referee. Absolutely. He's fantastic. But I had this self-doubt creep in of, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? What did I see? Right. And I'm going to lead into my next point here is you're only as good as your last play. And so I have this flag, I have this penalty, and I'm so confident that I think I've got it. And just to be, taken off of it just like that. And it was the right thing to do. Going back and look at the film, absolutely. If I had just waited another hair of a second to process that information, I probably would have seen, oh, okay, it is a shoulder. Don't be so amped up. But in that moment, I thought, gosh, why am I out here? What am I doing? I don't deserve to be out here. I'm just a screw up. I had these thoughts, and that went on for like 2 series. I just had terrible thoughts in my head. And my next point is, you're only as good as your last play. And if it's a great one and you nail it and you got that, whether it's a penalty or the mechanic and you got a touchdown, whatever, great. You got the play right. Now you got to go do it again, right? And if it's a bad one, you threw a foul, you're questionable, you're out of position, you missed a catch, no catch. Well, now you got to get ready for the next one. And I
Right.
compare this to golf. And Ryan and I have golfed a couple of times, and he's seen my game. It's lackluster. It's subpar, if you will. But I don't golf very often, and I'm not very good at it. But it is fun. But when you get on a tee box and you hit that awesome drive, and it sure felt like it went 300 yards, even if it only went 100, it feels good. Great. Now you got to go hit the ball again because it's a par 5. And if you're like me, it's going to take you 8 or 9 shots to get there. But, if you had a bad shot and it ends up over in the river, well, guess what? Shake it off because you've got to go hit the ball again. So just like with officiating, you're only as good or as bad as your last play. So whether good or bad or in the middle, this goes back to what we talked about episodes ago. Go back to your pre-snap routine. Ryan, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, my first thought was you're talking about taking 8 or 9 shots on a par 5. For me, I would lose about 8 or 9 golf balls in the woods or in the water by the time I got up to the green. So now, we just talked about slowing down. The pre-snap routine is part of that. Now, we had a game earlier this year where this team deliberately asked us, and we didn't hurry up anything special, but they wanted to snap the ball at 32 seconds on the play clock at minimum, right? If it was 33 or 34, so much the better. It is hard to do your pre-snap routine when they're snapping the ball 6 or 7 seconds into the play clock. Because remember, the 40-second clock is generally starting when we put our hand up. Now, this was a well-disciplined team for this. Their coach knew as soon as the play was over, they sprint to the umpire and hand him the ball, and he gets it down. So that's the only way we're able to do that, right?
Gotcha.
But, if I'm marking a spot, my hand goes up, the 40-second clock is starting, I've got 5 to 6 seconds to complete my pre-snap routine. It's not a lot.
No, it's not.
But that is, going back to Steve Martin, and we need to have Steve on again because, man, is he ever a fount of wisdom for all of us. But having that routine established, so I didn't have to think through it, right? As my hand is going up, I'm looking, is the defense substituting? No, there's nobody coming on or off. I had 11 on the last play, scanning around, still have 11. My count is in, right? While I'm walking back, I'm going to stop and put my foot out for the receiver to give him the line. So he's going to have the line. Then and I'm talking high school, obviously college, I'm counting offense, but
Sure.
Same concept, right? If I had 11 on offense on the last play, and, obviously we're announcing substitutions in college and all of that. If I had 11 on the last play and I don't have any substitution announcement, or I don't see anyone coming on or off, scan around, probably going to have 11 again. Now I do want to get that count. But it's starting the process. I don't have to worry. Okay, I see 3 guys coming off. I got to count to make sure I've got only 3 guys coming in. When you're in that hurry up offense, right? So I'm getting my count in. I'm getting my foot established for the line. I'm looking back. How many are on? How many are off? Is my tackle too far off? Is it far enough where I need to flag it? Or can I get in and fix them for the next play, right? So it's having that routine established every time. We've talked about there's different pre-snap routines for a back judge, different pre-snap routines for deep wings, different pre-snap routines for referees and umpires. But it's about knowing what you're doing on every single play. So if they're snapping at 32 or 2 on the play clock, I'm doing the same thing every single play. I'm not uncomfortable. I don't feel like I'm rushing, and I'm still calm because I know what I'm doing.
Yep.
And Michael, I know that you've got different pre-snap routines, obviously from Friday to Saturday. Mine are pretty darn similar, except again counting defense versus offense. But how does that factor into the work you've done this year, both on Fridays and Saturdays?
I think just like you said, their pace of play doesn't change what I do. And it goes back to going slow. Now, obviously we have to be in a position ready to officiate the next play. But I'm going to lead into kind of the last point I wanted to talk about too, is preparing for your team, whether it's Friday or Saturday. You shouldn't show up that morning going, well, what do I have to do today? You should already know that. And I'll answer your question first. Whether it's Fridays or Saturdays, I have two different pre-snaps, whether I'm line of scrimmage or deep, but it's going through those, and I can get that done in the same amount of time every time. I don't take 5 seconds because they want to go in 5 seconds, and I don't take 20 seconds because it's a more methodical team. My pre-snap probably takes me about 9 seconds from the time the play's over to the time we're ready to go. That gets me about 31 to 30. Unless there's something that happens, right? If we've got like a player out of bounds or got to get a new ball in, but I'm usually ready to go somewhere between 28 and 31, we'll say. But all the while thinking those things through your head, and sometimes it's doing multiple things at once. Ryan talked about he's counting the offense or defense and putting his foot up for a receiver. In my case, I might be checking for a sub, and I'm checking the clock to make sure we got clock status. Those different kind of things. But it goes back to preparation of each team. And I know Ryan and I, we have on our high school crew, we've got our back judge and umpire. They scout both teams for us every week, and they are 100 for 100 so far, shall we say, 100%. Yeah. Our umpire went a little bit above and beyond the Call of Duty. He scouted some extra teams. But we get those out by Thursday, and so we know what teams we have to expect for Friday. And it's simple things, tendencies and kind of top players. And same thing on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that we're not going to step on the field and be surprised by, this team's going 5 wide and out of the shotgun all night, right?
Right.
We're going to know that in advance. This is an option team. We're going to know that in advance. Mm-hmm. We're not going to know every play that they're going to run. We don't scout it that closely to where you can pick up tendencies and that kind of thing. But you're going to generally know the formations they work out of. Are they run heavy, pass heavy? Is it a balance? Mm-hmm. And before the game, we're talking to the coaches about any special plays that we might need to be ready for, and we'll make sure everybody knows those. But that scouting, that makes such a big difference. Like you said, in our high school crew, our back judge and our umpire, they've done a fantastic job all season with that. We're ready every time we step out there. On Saturdays, we'll talk about it beforehand, but I just make sure I watch film. Mm-hmm. I go to the 2 teams I have and I look at their last couple games. Any formations that are a little funky, I'm always looking at the tackles. If there's one that tends to cheat back, I'll want to get that in pregame before I go out there. But knowing what the teams are likely to do, knowing what their tendencies are, it makes a difference. I make notes for Saturday. I know the tackles' names. I go through and I look who's playing left and right tackle. I have that on my note card so that if I do need to get one of their attention, I can go out there and I can get their attention. I don't have to say, hey, 72 with, we don't always register what the number is right. As we're doing that.
Sometimes they forget their own number.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, move up. We can fix that there. So yeah, I think scouting makes a big difference there. One of the things that you sort of touched on earlier, and I think this is a big thing that I picked up on, and literally from my game this weekend, it's something that's been on my mind. So we often talk about some of the more subjective judgment calls we have, like holding, DPI, OPI. We've talked through some categories, some things we're looking for there. And it goes back to the old adage that on pass plays, you're going to have some hand fighting on every play. You could find a hold on every play if you wanted to. The whole question is there an advantage gained from it? Right? That's what we're looking for. So Saturday, I think I threw 3 holding fouls. And there was a 4th one that just stuck with me the whole time where I was like, I don't know if I missed that. But I went to the film, and the ones that I threw, they're holds. They're point of attack, they're holds. Mm-hmm. I perfectly fine with it. The one that I was questioning, I went to it and I looked on film, and I watched the film, and I slowed the film down, and I slowly backed it up, and I slowly put it forward. I slowly backed it up again. I slowly put it forward, and I still don't know if it's a hold. Mm-hmm. So the lesson, I guess, from that, and the thing I want to impart as you enter the playoffs or go late in the season is trust your gut. Right, the one that I questioned on the field, I didn't put a flag down because I wasn't confident. Right, it goes back to the whole thing on a hold. Tell yourself it's a hold, it's a hold, it's a hold. throw. I couldn't get there on that play. The other ones I got there and I threw the flags, and those were correct. This one, we're going to talk about it amongst our crew. If it was a hold and I missed it, then fine. But I can differentiate the ones I threw on. Those were holds. I was confident that flag went down because I knew it. The one I didn't throw, I wasn't confident on, and I'm not going to guess on that flag. That's just how it goes. So trust your gut, go through the process on those kinds of plays. If you know it's there, throw. If you're questioning it, there's probably a reason you're questioning it, right? We don't throw flags for hunches. We don't throw flags for speculation.
Nope.
We want proof, right? And that proof is something we see with our eyes, and you either have a flag or you don't. Now, that being said, I threw a flag on Friday night in our high school game, and I went back and looked at the film, and boy, that was a bad one. I should not have thrown that one. So I'm not trying to make this lesson right now that I'm 100% correct on every flag I throw or don't. But the process is generally trust your gut with what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, we don't want to turn this up into criticize Ryan or Michael. So we're just trying to impart some wisdom that we've learned. But Ryan brings up a great point of just, love the flag that you are about to throw. And I have done a number of slow motion slow motion forward and slow motion backward. And if you have to get to that point, let it go. We don't have slow motion at our level. We don't have slow motion. We don't have replay. You get one look at it, and then, from the film we get, you might have an angle or two to work with, and you got to let it go, and you learn from it. And more often than not, the answer is slow down. More often than not.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. One of the other things that comes to mind thinking back on the season, and again, there's a lot of stuff that happened in the games we had Friday and Saturday. They're just, obviously the most recent ones are going to be freshest in my mind, but had a lot of stuff happen Saturday that's really front and center. So I had a play, I've never seen it before. It was a handoff running back. This was a bowling ball of a running back, just a strong, big guy. He could get, whenever he wanted to, he could get 8 to 12 yards, it seemed. But he was never brought down by the first hit. It was always, he'd be dragging some guys, breaking loose. So in this play, he's hit, he's moving forward, an arm swings in, hits the ball. And the next thing I see is there's a defender on the ground in control of the ball with possession. So I come in killing it. I sprint into that spot, and I point in the direction of the team that was the defense. So it's now B's ball, first down B, right? And I looked at it on film, and I liked the call. It was the right call. It was a fumble, and it was a correct call. Now, when I looked in the top left corner, because I remember this was fairly early on in the game, it was play 3. Right? That was the third play of the game. So we had a kickoff. This was the second offensive play of the game. The lesson there that we see at rules meetings or in other discussions is that you have to be ready from play 1. You can have that funky kick out of bounds or that kick out or that kickoff that dribbles down to the pylon like a guy on your crew had a couple years ago, which is just one heck of a play.
Yeah.
Judging, is it goal line first? Is it sideline? And that play obviously make a goal line, make a touchback, but you have to be ready.
Don't remind him. So
yeah.
To that individual, if you're listening, sorry.
He did a great job.
He did a fantastic job.
That was a hard play that I learned a lot by watching somebody else have to deal with it, but he did a great job in real time.
Fantastic job.
But the point is, whether it's your high school playoff game or your Saturday game, you have to be locked in from play 1. Mm-hmm. And be confident on those, because that was play 3. If I had gotten into my head after that, I was going to have a very long afternoon, right? Yes. I knew what I saw. I made the call, and I lived with it. And I went to the film, and that one was correct. And again, I'm not trying to tell you I was 100% on calls I made or didn't make Saturday, because Lord knows I wasn't. But my second point with all of this is be ready from the start. Be ready from the first kick to you have zeros at the end of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I agree, and you've got to stay locked in too, right?
Yeah,
We've had numerous in Indiana. We've got a mercy rule,
right.
and that can kick into effect in the second half, and we've had it a number of times. And oftentimes, coaches use it to put second stringers or third stringers in, right? Their
Right.
JV, and as a result, you kind of end up getting some bad football. And I don't mean that to disparage the players, but from the fact of just those kids haven't had as many snaps, or
Right.
their techniques aren't fully developed yet. So you might have fumbles, you might have holds or that kind of things. But when you get to that mercy rule that we have here in high school, it's especially important to stay locked in,
Right.
especially for the sake of player safety. And you don't want to develop bad habits. On Saturdays, we don't have such a rule, and I've had a couple of games that have gotten to be 3-4 scores, and it's really easy to lull yourself to sleep, especially as a deep
Yeah.
wing. If you get 30, 35 points or so, oftentimes that team ahead is going to run the ball up the middle, and likewise the losing team, if they're still fighting, they may throw the ball, or they may kind of have conceded and run the ball up the middle, and it's real easy to get to sleep. So you've got to stay locked in, um,
Right.
for 2.5 to 3 hours, and that's what Ryan will try to hopefully impart with this show is just preparation.
Yeah. Part of that, obviously, with the high school mercy rule, or even if it's a college game that's not all that close, um, you know, we've been pretty lucky with the games we've had like that. We haven't really had a lot of tempers or a lot of cheap
Very true.
shots
Yeah.
or stuff like that.
Yep.
But you could. Um, Nobody likes to get blown out. It's happens when you play sports. I mean, almost everybody's been through it at some point. It's not a great feeling. It's not going to make you happy, and sometimes it gets chippy. So just be mindful of the game you have. Get the safety stuff, get the big stuff. If it's high school, we're at a mercy rule thing. Obviously, in college, a foul is a foul, regardless of time and score. Um, but like you said, stay locked in from the first kick until we're leaving the field. One of the other points I wanted to discuss, especially as we're on the eve of playoffs here in Indiana, is I think you kind of alluded to this as well, Michael, with if you not necessarily miss a call, but you question a call that you made or didn't make, and how you can really get in your head and for a series or two be questioning yourself and why am I out here on the field? And that's not you. That's everybody's been through that. I've been through
Yep.
that many times
Yep.
myself.
For sure.
And it took me a while to figure out what it was. And it's just to distill it. Not that I'm a professional in this area by any means, but it's just imposter syndrome, right?
Oh, yeah, that's great.
It's lacking that confidence. And I always think back the third year that I was officiating, we had a game that was whatever. It's really bad for me talking about Indiana high school football. I don't know what the TV channel is that shows the game of the week every week. The Channel 40, I think.
Indiana Sports Network, I think, or
yeah. But it was the game of the week, and
Yep.
it was two 5-0 teams. They were both ranked. It was a big game, and I remember spending the entire week leading up to it thinking, why the hell am I officiating this game? They could easily find somebody much better than me. I shouldn't be out on that field. And I spent the whole week like that. I mean, I'm not talking like a play. It was the entire week leading up to it. And then I set foot on the field for warm-ups, and I was like, yeah, I belong out here. And that was my back then. I would get in my head the entire week, and then I would set foot on the field and be like, all right, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
But there's still that moment. We all have it. We had a play in a high school game a few weeks ago that, again, because I'm not trying to portray myself as being 100% accurate here, I just absolutely botched it. Just absolutely botched the play. There was a sort of a mutual takedown that occurred near the point of attack, and that took my attention away. And boy, I missed a muff and a fumble recovery, and it was just absolutely kicked that play. And I could easily have spent the rest of that game in my own head, and I would have missed a lot more things.
Yep.
I could have questioned, why am I out here? They'd probably be better off going to 4-man without me being involved, something like that. But, we got past that play. I looked at it on film, and boy, I kicked that one. But it's part of that process as we go along and we get better. Part of it is experience. Like I said, when I used to spend the entire week thinking that, that was my third year of officiating, right? I was still young in the process there. I've got more years now. I don't think that, I'll still get anxious a little bit for games. I think that's fairly natural, but I don't feel like I don't belong anymore. If I kick a play, I'll learn from it. And like you said, it's about the next shot.
Yep.
Now I might hit the next shot into the water as well, but I've got to get all those thoughts out of my head and be ready to get the next play. Number one, to officiate correctly. Number two, to make sure we get safety fouls. Number three, just to move on, and because we've got more work to do out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, just kind of thinking back on the couple of years I've done this, when you're in your first year and you're in your first game and you have that foul, you go, play. I won't even say foul, just play. Maybe mechanically you weren't where you wanted to be or something. If you think about it, and if you're listening right now, and it's your first year officiating high school football and you've worked a couple of games, if you are in your first game and you're halfway through, you've worked 50 plays. Right. And I don't know, average high school game, Ryan, 150 plays, give or take 140.
Yeah, I'd say average. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's make the math easy and say 150. If you are fortunate enough to work a full season like we were, and maybe you get a first round tournament game, that's 1,500 plays, right? And as time goes on, you're only going to create more and more plays. All of a sudden, that percentage of plays that you're thinking about becomes smaller and smaller. And that's why it's just so important to get on down the road and get past that play. You think about it from a coaching standpoint. If they call a play and they throw an interception, do you think the coach is dwelling on that interception? No. He knows he's going to have to go out and throw the ball again. That quarterback knows they're going to throw the ball again at some point in the game. So just like us, if you miss a play, and a coach may very well be upset, he may think you kicked it, he may disagree with the call. The best you can do is give your coach an explanation. That I wouldn't try to use too many words, but give the coach an explanation of what you saw, and then move on. And more often than not, the coach will move on as well, because he has other things that he has to do.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of different strategies for dealing with that. The one that I've probably heard from the most people is to, you're not going to win an argument with a coach on that. You tell the coach what you saw, and then say, if it occurred as you told me, then I missed it, right?
Yep.
And get ready for the next play.
You will not. Yeah, you will not win that argument in that moment.
Yeah,
never.
Yeah.
You will never.
Win it. So there's no point, and you're just wasting time, because we've talked about pre-snap routines. If that happens on a play, and then the coach is there for, give them that, because you've got to get back to your routine, because you got to get the next play. Mm-hmm. I think one thing that we've hit on, Michael, for those of you who are newer, is that if you have any of these doubts, whether it's like I used to have the whole week leading up to the game, or if it's during a portion of the game or after a play.
He doesn't do this anymore, folks, I promise.
No, that's the point, though, right? I mean, that's natural. Maybe mine wasn't natural. Maybe mine was really something that was really bad. But fortunately, I'm past that now. But those doubts that you might have, the uncertainty, the lack of confidence at certain moments of a game, we've all been there. Michael and I have been there. We will still get there sometimes. The difference is, as you get more experience, it lasts for a shorter period of time. You deal with it and you move on.
Yep.
You watch the film afterward. If you missed it, figure out why. Was my positioning wrong? If your positioning was right, was I looking somewhere I shouldn't have been looking? If you were looking where you should have been looking, was it just the wrong judgment? And if it was just the wrong judgment, that happens, right? Try to learn from it, get the context there, and next time you see that play, you'll nail it. If your positioning was wrong, figure out why, and next time you're there, fix it. If you were looking in the wrong area, but your positioning was right, All right, think through what happened. Why were you looking in the wrong area? Next time you'll be looking in the right area. It's a process. It's unfortunate that with the shortage that we have, that new officials really get thrown to the wolves, and you have to get out there from day one almost, right? Because there is a lot of advantage to working a season of freshman games, a season of JV games, right? You're going to see a lot of things come up, a lot of stuff that may not be as sharp as in a varsity game, and you learn those situations. That's, I think, as Michael and I have implied, and as I've said before, it was in my very early years when it was harder to deal with those kind of things, or more doubt creeped into my head. Mm-hmm. At this point, as the years go on, that's less and less. It doesn't go away completely. I'm sure we could find some handful of guys out there who say, "Oh, never have any doubts, never have any questions there." I don't think they'd be particularly truthful, but that's part of it. But there's just an experience factor, right? And unfortunately, at this point of the year, you can't add 5 or 6 more seasons into your experience level. But you've been through a season, so you've seen a lot. And as the playoff comes, there's going to be scenarios that you've seen before, and you're ready to deal with it. And there's going to be scenarios that you haven't seen before, and you'll figure it out. And then watch the film afterwards and learn from it and get better. That's what we've done. When I think back to my first season, my second season, it wasn't all that good, but I got into the rule book, I got into the mechanics manual, I watched film, and we've gotten better. And I think those are things that that's why this podcast exists, right? Because we read the rules book, we read the mechanics manual, we watch film, we look at play scenarios, we get better. We use the podcast to talk about, certain rules, certain mechanics, certain scenarios. And at this time of year, it's just time to synthesize all of those things.
Yeah, we had Ross Hayden on a couple of episodes ago too, and he talked a lot about film. I highly suggest that episode too. Film was a great way to get better, especially during the off season. And I've learned this too this year too. Just being honest with yourself when you're watching that film. Go back and watch. If you missed what you were intending to look at, or what your assignment was for that given play, go back and watch what you should have been looking at. Maybe you caught yourself ball watching, and you should have been reading your keys better, reading the play better. But be honest with yourself on why you got something, or if you did, mechanically or a foul again. If you got something right, look at that play and try to pick apart. Okay, why did I get this right? Oh, I got to the goal line ahead of the play, or I was able to anticipate this because, I read my keys correctly and it took me to the play. Pick up on those things and take notes on that. But I've had a hard time this year when I have some 50-50 plays. I like to stick with the call that I made on the field, and it does take some of my colleagues here to go, do you really like it? And then I have to sulk and put my tail between my legs and say, yeah, I don't like it. I'll change I would do it differently if I could. We all get those moments when that happens.
That's all of us. Nobody who's honest is 100% on any particular game or season.
We don't like to be wrong. Otherwise we'd be in a different profession, right? We want to be right, and it just proves that we want to get better, right? If we didn't care, we wouldn't try to get better.
Right. Exactly. Now, we were faced this year, Michael, with a very unique play. And it was a play that we were aware of because it had come out that week on the college training tape that gets sent around. And for whatever reason, that play stuck with me because it's a play that I think we see a lot, and most people don't think of it as a foul. But it is, and it's a unique foul that doesn't get called very often. And I'm only bringing this up because this occurred. It occurred maybe an hour and a half after we had a discussion about, if this happens, this is the foul, because we had just seen it on the college training tape. And then first quarter of our game, it happened. And as we've said before, Michael and I are line of scrimmage officials. Mm-hmm. This one occurred on Michael's sideline. And I bring this up because this is a gold star moment, a lift the trophy for Michael.
Oh gosh,
man, did he nail it! So, So I'll kind of let you talk through the play. And I bring this up because I think it's something that hopefully all playoff crews are aware of, because I think a lot of high schools do this because the coaches don't realize it's a foul. I think before this, I probably wouldn't have thought that it was a foul, but we need to be mindful of it.
Yeah, Ryan, thank you for those words of praise. I really appreciate that. It's very humbling, and still kind of shocked that we saw this play. Still, having the crew there to bounce all the ideas off, I think made it all the better. So to kind of go into what Ryan's talking about, we had their offense come out, and in the particular team, they had 3 receivers come to my side, and 1 over went to Ryan's side. And so, excuse me, the 1 and 2 receivers on the outside both punch on the line of scrimmage, and number 3 is back off. And I thought, okay. I look across, and Ryan has his fist out, his receiver's off, and then I count a quarterback and a receiver in the backfield. And I thought, okay, I have a covered receiver on my side. And I think every line of scrimmage out there, official, when you see a covered receiver, your first thought is, please, of all things, run the ball. Please run the ball. Please run the ball. Yep. And lo and behold, ball snapped. Receiver 1 goes out and blocks. Okay, this is good. And receiver 2 steps back, and all of a sudden the pass is thrown to receiver number 2. And I thought, uh-oh. And he was tackled roughly at the line of scrimmage, maybe gained a yard on the play. And my brain had just kind of fired. So I killed the clock and dropped my flag late, kind of gave it a little toss in. And the only reason this registered with me is, like Ryan alluded to, there was a training tape from the CFO that I'd watched 5 or 6 hours earlier. That's the only reason it crossed my mind, and we talked about it in our pregame too. And lo and behold, it happened. So I go into our referee, and I said the dreaded words I shouldn't have, but I said, I think I have illegal touching. And so I get on the horn. I'm very nervous. I go, Ryan, I think I had I said, Ryan, my guy's covered up. He goes, well, either your guy was covered or we have 5 in the backfield, and that's a problem. I said, okay, he was on. I've got illegal touching. So we go 5 yards and lost it down, or 5 yards previous spot, lost it down, and on we go. And of course, the coach on my side had many questions. The first being, are you sure? And my response was yes. Then secondarily, he commented that they'd run that play all year. And at this point, we're in week 7 or 8. I don't remember exactly, but and I don't say that to knock another crew. Please, everyone listening out there, if you had this same play happen, that is not the intent. I bring it up because a coach will challenge you and say, we've done this all year, whether it's a formation play or something like this. We may have it with players with equipment, right? How often do you hear a player with a visor? Oh, I've worn it all year. No, you haven't. Don't say that. And so coaches will say things like that to make you question yourself. And so just give the coach your response and say, Coach, I said, by rule, he's covered up. He's ineligible by position because he's covered. And he said, okay. And I'd never heard anything for the rest of the game from him. He didn't argue the call, had the question. Very great coach. My hat off to him. Much respect for him. Very professional. And that was the end of that conversation. And then the game continued. So.
Yeah, we bring this up, but this is not to criticize anyone else. It's not to pat ourselves on the back, no matter how this might seem. Although I'd like to pat Michael on the back because, again, he did a great job. But we want this to be educational leading into the playoffs, okay? Because if you see this play, we need to be consistent from game to game, from week to week, because, when the coach said that they'd run it all year and the foul hadn't been called, I think he was probably right on that because had it not been for us seeing that film, I wouldn't have known myself. I wouldn't have thought of it as a foul, but it is. So again, the idea is if a covered receiver, as Michael alluded to, if we see a covered receiver, a lot of times they're going to run the ball and they just do that to block, but sometimes they'll do a pass. And as long as the covered receiver doesn't go downfield, if they throw it downfield, no foul. If he goes downfield and they throw it downfield, ineligible downfield, of course.
I think I didn't clarify something in this play. The pass was behind the line of scrimmage, right? But it was not backwards. I think I apologize. I left that part out. This was a forward pass caught behind the line. And I think that's why the team thought it was legal, was because everything was behind the line.
Correct. So the rule here, it's fairly simple. So you have an ineligible receiver who catches a forward pass. Now it's a screen pass, but it's still a forward pass, right? Had it been a backward pass or a lateral, it'd have been a perfectly legal play.
Correct.
Anybody can catch a backward pass or a lateral. That's perfectly fine. Because he's an ineligible receiver who was the first to touch a forward pass, it's illegal touching. Doesn't matter if it's a screen. I
Correct.
mean, this pass could take place 20 yards behind the line of scrimmage. It's still a foul. Same thing as well. If an ineligible receiver catches a forward pass downfield, it's still illegal touching down there as well. If an ineligible receiver is the first player to touch a forward pass, it's illegal touching. As Michael said, it's 5 yards and loss of down. So if you see a team do that, just be mindful of that going in. That is our, we try to keep this sort of general and, general tips for getting ready for the playoffs and getting ready for late in the college season, if that applies. But if you have that play come up, we wanted to make sure that you're aware of that because, again, before that film that we watched, I wouldn't have thought to throw that. I myself would have thought that was a perfectly legal play. I've read the rule before. I just never put two and two together out in the field on that one.
I wish I could sit here today and tell everyone that the same thing would happen to me, that I'd say, oh yeah, I totally would have gotten that. Without the Kickstarter, watching the previous video and talking about it with the crew, I'm not sure it would have registered in my head either. And again, we want to share this information so week to week, when we go from team to team and game to game, and they have different crews, we're all officiating the same way. That's why we have things like the IFOA and we have the IOA. And I'm sure, if you're another organization within Indiana or a different state, everybody's trying to get to the same point and officiate the same way every time.
Right. It's about uniformity and consistency and making sure that play, no matter who's running it, no matter what week, no matter who's on the field, it gets called consistently. And so that helps the coaches and the players to know what they can and can't do, but it helps us as well just to be uniform in what we're doing out there. So if there's one big takeaway from tonight, I wouldn't try to do anything terribly new. Don't try to reinvent the wheel going into the playoffs. You've gotten this far for a reason. It's because, you know what you're doing out there. Obviously, to work playoff games, you're getting good scores from your schools.
Mm-hmm.
You've passed the test. You know what you're doing out there. So it's a matter of putting into practice what you've done all year, slowing down, being confident in your calls, calling what you see, and trying to keep those moments of doubt and those moments of questioning yourself that creep in, keep those to a minimum. And then once that plays over, move on and be ready for the next one. Any sort of summation or summary tips from you, Michael?
Just keep doing what you're doing. If you're not used to running marathons, you wouldn't get off your couch today and go try to run a marathon, right? If you're, don't do anything extra than you've already done this point. Be sharp, be crisp, and be prepared. But now's not the time to try to try to overexert yourself and exhaust yourself before postseason.
Right. But most importantly, best of luck to all of you.
Yes, absolutely.
Make it be there, be confident, and be the best team out on the field. And that's about all the advice that we have at this time. So we want to thank you for joining us once again for this episode of Learn Your Stripes. We promise we're not going to have as long of a break before the next one. So we like to do this some as the postseason advances and as the college season gets into the deeper. However, before we get to our next episode, as always, we'd like to leave you with a play to consider.
All right, so we've got a little bit different play here. We're dealing with a free kick. So from high school, we'll be going from the 40, K40 on a free kick, and from college, we'll be going from the 35. So K1 kicks the ball into the ground where it bounces twice and then pops high into the air. R1 is in position to field the kick and signals for a fair catch. And we have two scenarios here. A, K2 leaps in the air and catches the ball at the R35 and runs into the end zone. Or B, R1 fields the ball and is tackled immediately by K2 at the R35. So other than the yard lines from where we start, everything else is going to be potentially the same. I will say potentially the same, maybe not. And that's where we want your help. So for high school and for college, what is your ruling? What will be your down and distance? And more importantly, with a kick like this, who is next to put the ball in play for both scenarios A and B?
That's a really good one. That's certainly one to think through before your games this weekend as well. We'll discuss that play at the start of the next episode. In the meantime, though, if you want to let us know what your ruling would be, or if you have any questions or feel we made a mistake, please email us at learnyourstripes@gmail.com. We'd like to thank Andrew for once again sponsoring this episode. And you can contact us at learnyourstripes@gmail.com if you're interested in sponsoring an episode or advertising on the show. You can find us on your app of choice or obtain episodes at learnyourstripespodcast.com. Please also follow us on Facebook at Learn Your Stripes Podcast, on Instagram at the same name, and on Twitter at LYS_podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, please tell your friends and rate us 5 stars and leave a review on your app of choice. We'll see you back here soon. In the meantime, keep learning your stripes.
Thank you, everyone.